Hi there, virtual passengers. Captain Keller here, and welcome to a rather wet and windy New Zealand. So today we're doing a short hop in the Kodiak. My new video for the A320 from Gatwick to Venice was uploaded onto YouTube today. So I thought I would do another short hop in the Kodiak with plans to do an airliner flight this weekend. So you already know the new format of the videos. So without further ado, let's go in and have a look at the flight plan and set the aircraft up. So the first thing we're going to do is have a look at Sim Toolkit Pro. So as you can see from the map on Sim Toolkit Pro, it is very windy. It's a 16 knot pretty much headwind. We're going to be taking off from runway 34 at Wellington International, and we'll go through the departure route shortly, but we're going to be heading north for a few miles, then turning left and going direct to Lucca. And then we're going to fly from Lucca. We're then going to basically do a straight into Woodbourne, which is actually a military airfield. So we will be landing on 28 left, which is a tarmac runway. And yeah, total flight time today is about an hour, gate to gate. So the actual air time is probably about half an hour or so. Okay, so let's have a look at the SimBrief tool flight plan. So you can see here that we're heading from Wellington International to Woodbourne, and we're going to be cruising at 6,000 feet today, so relatively low. And we're going to be taking 367 kilos of fuel, 394 kilos of fuel. I'm going to round that up to about 400 just to give us a little bit of extra fuel. And you can see we're taking off from runway 34 at Wellington. We're going direct to Lucca and then direct to Woodbourne, runway 28. There are approaches which I will be programming into the flight plan, but I will go through the approach plates and everything with you shortly. As you can see, the block time today is 50 minutes, and we've got 8 passengers on board with a takeoff weight today of 2.9 tons, so quite a light plane, but also a short route today. So let's have a look at the Navigraph charts so that you can see what we're looking at. So today we are currently sat here, and then there's one taxiway to get onto the runway, which is this one here. I will cross the runway, follow this taxiway down and hold short, and then we'll take off on runway 34. We're going to be using the Wellington 1 Delta departure today, so we're going to head out at heading 340 till we're 3.5 miles from the runway. Then we do a slight right turn and head out at 352 degrees until we hit 6,000 feet. Once we've hit 6,000 feet, we're then going to do a left turn and head direct to Lucca. Once we've got to Lucca, which we need to be at 3,000 feet for, so we're going to have to start descending from Lucca about 9 miles out, because we're not worrying about all of this approach stuff. We're basically just going to do a straight in and pick up the runway and go from there. So at CD24, which is this one here, that's when we start descending. In the flight plan, I'm going to delete any others, so it is Lucca, CD24, and then FD24, which is this one here, which is the final approach fix, and then straight into the runway. Okay, so now that we've got all of that sorted, let's start sorting out the plane. So the first thing I need to do is set up the fuel and the passengers. So the fuel, 394 kilos, so again, as I said earlier, we're going to round that up to about 400. So we've got 479 kilos, so we'll reduce that slightly. Because it's such a short flight today, I'm not going to worry about air traffic control, GSX or FSLTL or anything of that nature. I'm just going to go in and just fly the route, really. Just putting in all the passengers, put them all in at the same weight, and then we'll see what we're left with. 77. Row 3 left is 6 gives us 6 passengers on row 3. And then row 4. Just keeping an eye on that. That there. Yeah, CG is out of limit. So we've got 2885 kilos, and we need to be at our takeoff weight of 2895, so we need another 10 kilos, believe it or not. So I think what I'll do is I might make the co-pilot slightly heavier, see if that sorts out the CG on there as well. Not quite. Okay, so let's make the guys at the front 10 kilos heavier and take 10 kilos off these ones. And we're back in, so centre of gravity is now 39.68, so that's good news. Okay. Right then, so what we're going to do now is get the plane powered up. So let me just bring up my checklist here. So we're going to turn on the master switch, get rid of the yokes. Turn on the master switch, the avionics bus and the auxiliary bus. We'll leave the door open for a minute just to let the air through, because even though it's raining and a bit windy, it's still quite warm here in New Zealand. And we're going to go through and start setting up the flight plan. So what I'm going to do is put the flight plan into the autopilot, and I'll catch up with you when it's all been done. Welcome back. As you can hear, it's quite windy outside, which is going to make for a very interesting takeoff, but I've put the flight plan into the autopilot now. So you can see we are heading out to just bear with me, we are heading out from runway 34 to Delta 332 Delta, and then Manset, where we're going to hold till we hit 6,000, down to Lutka, and then from Lutka we're going on CD24, and then final approach fix of Foxtrot 24. So that's all planned in, ready to go. So what we're going to do now is finish setting the plane up. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and just press B so I can get the right pressure setting. And I'm going to close the door because it's just getting a little bit too windy out there personally. Let's close the door up, and we should be able to see the passengers, hopefully. Yep, there's the passengers. They're all looking very dry and very happy to be here. I think she's overly chuffed because she's sat right by the door. So let's see if I can get this door closed up, shall we? So, bottom door, top door. Get it locked up so that she's safe and doesn't fall out the plane. Okay, now let's finish setting up. So the first thing we need to do is go through and turn on the engine inlet switch. So engine inlet switch at the moment is on normal. We'll leave that on normal. You would only ever use bypass if you're on grass runway, gravel, lots of gravel around, that sort of thing. So we don't need to worry about that. Fuel shut off switches on. Make sure that the firewall switch is also on. I just need to check something very quickly with regards to my trim. So if I'm trimming down, right, okay, there we go. I'm just going to trim down slightly, probably to about there. Okay. So fuel shut off switch, that's been done. Make sure that these are all at normal. So normal, yes. Is it a normal? Normal, yes. That should be at idle, which it is. Off and off, brilliant, that's all good. Auxiliary fuel pump to on. Ignition to on. Starter, because it's the first start of the day, we do a low. Turn the beacon light on. As soon as that hits 14, we move this up to get some fuel in. To low idle. Wait for the numbers to settle. While waiting for that, turn on the generator and the alternator, turn the auxiliary pump to standby, turn the starter switch off and the ignition off. Once those numbers have settled, move that to max RPM, so that should now start to speed up. Yep, there you go. And off we go, we're going to taxi to the runway. So as I say, basically I'm just going to turn back on myself and get ready to go. Landing lights do not need to be on because we're not going on the runway yet, and nor does the strobe. They don't need to come on until we cross over. So I'm going to taxi to the runway now, and I'll catch up with you when we're holding short and we're pretty much ready to go. Speak to you soon. Welcome back. As you can see, the rain has stopped, so we've now taxied to the end of the runway, so we're holding short. I know there's no traffic around because I've not injected any traffic today. I've set up the autopilot, so we're going to be climbing up to 6,000 feet at 100 knots. And I've also put one stage of flaps down, turned on all of my lights, so it's now just a question of getting the plane ready to go. So we're just going to hold on the toe brakes, and hopefully we're going to have a successful takeoff today. So here we go. Parking brake off, hold on the toe brakes slightly, the wind is bringing us round. So I need to be putting in a lot of extra rudder until we get round onto the runway. Slow down a little bit, it's because we've got a tailwind, it's making, obviously speeding the plane up. Turn left, make sure that we're all lined up with the runway, and then we'll throttle up and check that the numbers are all straight, are all steady. See, because the plane is slowing right down, and you can see it's the the GPS thinks I'm doing 30 knots at the moment, and I'm not. I'm just walking along ground speed at 11 knots at the moment, so very slow really. So I want to make sure I'm as lined up as possible before we stop. Okay, so we're going to be rotating at about 65 knots, so we're just going to put the throttle up a little bit. Make sure it holds at 75. Put the auxiliary pump back on again just in case. Toe brakes off, full throttle. Little bit of right rudder, little bit of right rudder. Speed tape is alive. 50 knots. 60 knots. 70 knots. 80 knots. And we're up. Throttle back just a little bit. Bring my flaps up. And just keep the plane climbing. Keep the plane climbing up to about 1,000 feet, and then we'll put the autopilot on. knots, 700 feet, sorry. 800 feet. 900 feet, 1,000 feet. Autopilot goes on. Feet come off the rudder. Pedals. Throttle back ever so slightly now, so that we can keep the climb. 100 knots. Yaw damper goes on. Plane is going to fly itself. Let's have a look around, shall we? There you go, there's a rather misty runway there. So guys, I'm going to leave you now to enjoy the short cruise, and I'll see you when we're pretty much onto our final descent. See you soon. Welcome back, virtual passengers. I hope you enjoyed the cruise. We're currently on our final descent now to into Woodbourne. So I've set the altitude at 500 feet, which is when I'm planning to turn the autopilot off. And you can see the runway there dead ahead, and we're currently at 1400 feet. I'm just trying to slow us down a little bit more so I can get my first stage of flaps out at 135 knots, and then the second stage can come out at 115 knots. So just reducing our throttle a little bit. And we're currently dropping at about 700 feet per minute, which according to the chart is about right to give us a nice 3-degree angle. So as you can see, we've got a wind coming in from the front right, so it's going to make it quite interesting for landing. And almost down at the right, there you go. Flaps 1 down, that'll slow us down a little bit more. So just keep an eye on our speed. When we've hit 500 feet, I will then take control. Because it's very windy, so I want to use the autopilot as much as I can to get us down there. 700 feet. Luckily, we've got a nice bit of runway to play with. Flaps 2 down. .500 feet, autopilot comes off, I have control. So just steer a little bit into the wind. Use power to control rate of descent. And use pitch to control speed. Speed is looking good. Everything's looking not too bad. Flare. Throttle back is very floaty landing, apologies. Not my best landing, but it's only my second landing in this plane. I didn't throttle back, that was the problem. And I bounced on the runway, so not the best of landings, but got it down on the floor, that's the main thing. Bit more braking. Turn off to the right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Woodbourne. We nearly crashed the plane, but not quite. Unfortunately, I forgot to turn the replay on for the landing, so I'm afraid we're not going to be able to see that again. So just take it from me, it was a bit of a rough landing. It was so bad, I didn't ever turn my taxi lights off. So we'll bring keep that at high idle and just bring the prop back a little bit, I think. And then we'll taxi into our parking stand. And park it here next to the vehicle, and then we'll all thank our lucky stars that I didn't flip the plane when we landed. Good, pleased with that. Thank you very much for joining me on this flight, my virtual passengers. I hope you enjoyed it. As I say, a nice short flight today, but just gives you a little bit of a taster, a bit more of what the Kodiak can do. I've got quite a few of these little routes to do, so hopefully my landings will improve as we go on. And I look forward to you joining me on my next flight, which I think is going to be a British Airways flight to Paris. So we'll have to wait and see on that one, but that is my plan. So thank you again for joining me. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Leave any comments for improvements down below. I know my landings can do with improvement, but anything with regards to video format or anything of that nature, please feel free to leave your comments below. I will certainly take them on board. Until next time, bye-bye.